Good evening and welcome to another Classpad.net webinar. Today's title is I Don't Have Time to Teach Them Technology. For the sake of webinar quality, everyone will be automatically muted and all videos will turn off. If you do have a question, please type it in the chat panel and one of our moderators will respond back or ask the presenter to respond back to the entire group. Make sure you have your chat panel open because I know that our speaker today will be asking you guys to respond back to questions she's asking, and this is going to be we're going to try to make this a very interactive webinar today. So on the next slide, just a little bit about myself. My name is Amy Chow and I'm the National Training and Product Manager at Casio. You can see my bio here a little bit. I've been in education for the last 14 years. And our presenter today is Dr. Karen Greenhouse, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, and I'm Karen Greenhouse, and I've been teaching forever, and I wanted to do today's webinar because I've been teaching online for a really long time, and I've been teaching with technology. That's sort of what the focus of my dissertation was when I got my doctorate, and my work with Key and McGraw-Hill and now Casio has really been about integrating technology into mathematics. So today's focus is how do you teach mathematics, but also oops, sorry, that's not where I want to go. But also, how do you teach them the technology? Because the biggest excuse I hear from teachers is, well, I don't have time to teach them technology, so I'm not going to use technology. I'm just going to teach, my whiteboard, however, because I don't have time to teach technology. So the idea of today's presentation is to show you ways where you can do both, where you can be doing mathematics with students, but also helping them learn how to use the technology. And the more you do this, the better they get at it, and then you can increase how much you use the technology. So that is our goal today. So before I start, I wanted to first switch my screen. All right, there we go. We are going to be using Classpad.net, and I think I put it in the kind of the waiting room that if you didn't have an account, try to make an account. If you don't have an account, that's okay. You can just start exploring. But before we begin, I did want to send out a poll just to get a sense of where everybody is. So I'm going to launch a poll. I kind of want to just know what's your experience with Classpad.net. Have you never seen it before, or are you yet pro? Just so I kind of have a feel for where I am. And this is something you would ask students as well when you're first starting some technology. How good are you at using the calculator? How good are you at using this tool? So if we could get some folks. Oh, all right, so we got some people that are pretty comfortable. That's good. Waiting for a couple others. All right. And here's the results. Only 2 of you responded, but that's okay. So I'm going to stop sharing. So I have another poll that I want to do, and just again, this is just more for me, but this would be something that maybe you would do with your students as well. Get a sense of who they are, where they are, and I kind of want to know what your whether you're in a school yourself teaching, or whether you're in a school district and your children are going to school, or if you're working with schools, because obviously you're on this webinar, so you have something to do with education. So I just kind of want to get a sense of what is the going back to school, the school reopening plan for around where you live. So this just give me a little bit. So again, here's another poll just to give you just more to give me a sense of who's on right now. Hybrid. That does seem to be the more popular, though I got to tell you, my university that I teach at, Drexel, was doing a hybrid approach, and we just got notified today that they are making all undergrads go remote only because of the COVID outbreaks that are happening. So things are changing, and I think that's happening in a lot of places. All right, I'm going to end this and I'll share. Again, not everyone responded, so it's not an accurate result, but just in case you're interested. But so a lot of us are doing remote, and that's also a great way to introduce technology. Classpad.net is a web-based software, and if you're teaching mathematics remotely, it's an incredible tool to use. And so that is today's goal. I'm going to treat you as my students, so I'm going to kind of be doing some things to show how you can introduce students to technology they may not be familiar with, but still learn mathematics while you're doing it. So I'm hoping, I really want you guys to be playing along. I'm going to be sending you things. I'm going to be asking you questions. I'm going to be asking you to respond in the chat panel for things. So if you have an account, if you already logged in, you can go ahead and log into your account. If you don't have an account, you can hit just start exploring. So Classpad.net, hit start exploring. Students can be doing the same thing. You don't have to have an account to just start playing. And so let's say we're all here. And the first thing I would do with students, let me just move this out of the way, is if I'm introducing a tool, but then we're going to go into some math, I might just kind of give a brief overview. So I might say, this is the tool we're going to be using in mathematics, and I just want to show you some things it can do. It can do calculations, so I can pull up a little sticky and do a simple calculation. It can do graphing. And I might give it, I'm not going to spend the time doing that with students. I would take a lot more time, but basically a quick overview of everything that it can do, right? So it can graph, it can do geometry, it can collect data and do statistical plots and regressions. You can do sequences. I'm not signed into an account, but if I were signed into my account, which I'm going to do in a minute, you can do financial things like, you know, simple interest, and you can do text. So I'm going to show you, if you've never used Classpad before, we did seem to have a lot of people who were familiar with it, but if I were working with students, the first thing that I would show them is how to make a text box. So if you make a text box, that means you can type things in here. So I'm going to ask you in a minute to do something, and I want you to type your answer in the text box and not share it with anyone until I'm ready to share. So how do you do a text box again? Just click anywhere on the screen, open a text box, and just start typing. So what I would like you to do, I'm going to give, and this is for all of you, I really want you to do this. I want you to think of yourselves as students. So the first thing when you're introducing students to technology they've never seen before or they're not familiar with that you're going to be using in class, whether it's a calculator or a software like this, playtime. Playtime is so important for students, and it also gives you an idea of how fast they can pick up things. So I always used to embed playtime into any time that I would take my students into the computer lab. I'm dating myself. When I was using technology, we did not have one-to-one devices or every student with a laptop or one-to-one. We had to go to a computer lab. So I would sign up for the computer lab and every week, and we would go in and we would learn mathematics. So the first week of school, I would sign up for the computer lab, and the first 2 days, all I did was ask the students to play and tell me what they figured out. So that's what I'm going to ask you to do right now. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to open up Classpad if you don't already have it open with, and I want you to just play around, and all I want you to do in a text box is to write one interesting thing that you found out that you could do with this tool. If I were with students, I would probably be more directive and give them a lot more time. I might say, I want you to find one interesting thing about each of these functionalities. You know, find one thing that you can do with these. But for you guys, I'm just giving you kind of a generic, just play around and find something interesting that you didn't know before if you've been playing with Classpad or that you think is really cool, and write in the text box what it is that you discovered. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I am actually setting a timer, believe it or not. So 5 minutes, for those of you just joining us, we are working in Classpad.net, and you have a directive for the next 5 minutes to just open it up. And I'm going to go to the plays. If you don't have an account, that's okay. You can just start exploring. And all I'm asking is for you to discover something about it. You have 5 minutes to discover something interesting about this tool, and write in the text box what you discovered. So don't put it in the chat panel yet. I just want you to write it in your text box on Classpad. So I'm trying to find my timer. I know I could actually use my phone. Or put the timer in the, so right now everyone's doing this. So if you were online with students in a Zoom classroom, however, you could be doing the same thing. You can send them all off to do something and meet back at a certain time.
Karen, can you repeat again what you're wanting everyone to do?
Yes, okay, so for those of you just joining us, we are working in Classpad.net, and we're gonna be using this the whole webinar. So get to that page, and if you have an account, log in. If you don't, you can just hit Start Exploring. And so when you start exploring, the directive right now is I want you just to find something interesting about it. So if you missed it, we walked through you click anywhere on the screen and you can do calculations and graphing and geometry and statistics and sequences and text. So I want you to find something interesting, do something mathy, figure out something, and write what it is you figured out in a text box on the paper that you're working in. That's what everyone's doing right now. We've got about maybe 3 minutes left. I'm giving everyone a little bit of time just to explore. This is playtime, something that's really important when you're working with students. Give them playtime on anything that's new so that they can get it out of their system, first of all, but also that they can discover things. All right, so hopefully everyone's figuring out, finding something interesting that you wanted to explore. You've got lots of options here. All I'm asking is for one interesting thing that you discovered. If you're new to Classpad, there's probably lots of interesting things that you're discovering. If you're already familiar with Classpad, maybe you found something new. Who knows? Oh, I don't think I want that on. I was going to put my video on, but I think I'm not going to. All right, I'm going to give you about a minute more. And so basically, here's what I'm hoping you have on your own paper, on your own Classpad paper. This is called a paper in Classpad, is something interesting that you discovered in your playtime, in your playing around with some of the functionality. I'm just asking you to free play, figure something out. Okay, I'm going to let you kind of finish up what you're doing, and I'm just going to kind of talk about how this helps students. So when you first introduce a new tool, whatever it might be, of technology, so a calculator or whatever, let them have the playtime, because we have to remember these students today are incredibly tech savvy. So they can almost figure things out before, they might find things that we didn't even know were there because they're just not afraid to try and make mistakes and undo things. So playtime is really important for a couple reasons. It gets them comfortable with the tool, helps them discover things, and it lets you see what they've already figured out on their own. So playtime is important. I used to always, definitely the first time we ever used the tool, we would have playtime at the beginning and we'd talk about it and then we'd go into some of the things. But I always left the last 5 or 10 minutes of any time we were in the computer lab as playtime. And the students knew that we would get through our mathematics and they'd always have time to end to explore on their own. And it kind of just alleviated a lot of the off-task behaviors, those types of things. So playtime is important for a couple reasons. So here's what I want. Everyone hopefully discovered something, at least one thing. So this is the first thing I would do with students is, what did you discover? So if everyone can write in the chat panel something they discovered. You may have discovered many things, but something interesting that you found while you were playing with Classpad. And I would do this with students as well, either online or face-to-face, wherever I'm teaching. So in the chat panel, if we can just see some things that people discovered, that would be nice. Someone? Come on, people. There's a sticky for most math options. Exactly, Michael. So that's really important. Like if you're a student, you're like, wow, I can do everything I need with this tool. So that's kind of cool. You can open a lot of the stickies, right? So you could open, that's an excellent point there, Caroline. You can open a graph and a geometry and a data. So you can do lots of different things all at the same time. So that's cool. You can use the menu, recursion menu, the multiple representations. Okay, so Tom has discovered some things about the data, which we are going to look at later. Anyone else have something to share? The stickies. Okay, so stickies, hopefully everyone was kind of able to figure out that these things move and you can rearrange your paper. So that's neat. You have a lot of control over how things look and where they are on the paper. Those types of things. All right, so I'm going to move on. So playtime, that's another way, that's a great way to get students introduced to a tool and to kind of figure things out. So then you want to move into, again, the whole idea is how do you teach technology while you're also teaching mathematics. So I'm going to go right now, for those of you who are just playing as a guest in Classpad, I'm going to log in. So I want to just make a brief point out here. Right now I'm in as a guest because I didn't log in originally. If I didn't have an account, I could create an account right now, but I do have an account. So I'm going to log into my account. I want you to notice the difference for those of you not as familiar with Classpad. So when I'm just a guest, I can't undo anything that I did. That's what these little arrows up here. I have unlimited screen, but I'm kind of limited in what I can do. If you remember, I can't do the financial things. That's blocked out. But if I log in, so since I already have an account, I'm going to hit log in. All right, I'm going to do it the cheating way because I don't. If I go into the regular thing and log in this way, it remembers me. So it's easier for me to do it this way. So when I log in, I want you to notice the difference. So the main difference is this right here. I now have what we call cloud saving. So creating an account lets me automatically save. Anytime I do any work in Classpad, it's auto saving. I don't have to remember to save. I don't lose anything. So it's always doing that all the time. I also have this icon duplicate here, which I think I am going to show you how to do at some point during a session. And then over here, I have a paper stack, which basically, because I have an account, it shows me all of the papers that I have been working on, all my folders, all the activities. So having an account opens up all of Classpad.net. So that's the advantage, having an account. All right. So here's what I want you to do. I want everyone, hopefully you figured out where it was, to, on the paper that you're working on, whether you're in your account or not, I want you to open a geometry sticky. So, and you can put it anywhere on your screen. And I'm going to show you a cool feature, and I want you to do the same thing. So geometry automatically defaults to this drawing tool, which means I can just go on here and draw anything I want. So I'm just going to draw a shape. And it does, oops, oh, that's a really bad shape. Okay, so I drew a really bad shape. I want all of you, hopefully you'll draw a better shape. Let's say I do that. There we go, there's a shape. Or I could draw a circle. So I want all of you to draw your favorite shape in a geometry sticky right now. And think about why it's your favorite shape. And so this is something I would do with students is I've shown them what to do. Now I want them to do it and have a reason for why it's their favorite shape. So maybe I'm trying to get maybe I'm a geometry teacher and I'm trying to get them to show me if they understand about segments and lines and angles, things like that. So hopefully everyone right now is drawing a shape in their geometry with the geometry drawing tool. And I'm actually going to do a different one. All right, so if I were with actual students, and I'm not going to do it now, but if I had actual students, whether I was online or face-to-face, I would actually have them share out their pictures. So in a lot of online platforms, you can have multiple screen shares, and people can, so each student might then show their shape and explain why it's their favorite shape. So that's something that I would do. And then I could then, okay, everyone has a shape. Now I want to show you a neat feature. So I'm helping them learn like the geometry sticky and sharing their ideas about mathematics, but we're also learning the technology tool. So if you have a shape that has a, well, I have an interior, right? I'm going to click my shape. So I want everyone to select. See this arrow tool down here? This lets me select something on my screen. So everybody with whatever shape you have, I want you to select your shape. So you can either put a box around it by holding your mouse down, or you could just click on the inside. And I'm going to show you a really neat thing with the geometry. If you click up here, so notice up here, oops, let me go back to it. There's a little arrow to the right. If your geometry sticky's way over here, it's probably on the left. This lets you do things with the stuff that you've selected. So I selected my shape. What can I do with it? And I want to go to adjustment. So my shape is a closed shape, so I can make it be congruent, or I can make it be a regular polygon. So I'm going to click that, and now I have, what kind of shape do I have? So then we could have a class discussion. So I've kind of shown them a really cool feature, then we have a math discussion about it, but they're kind of learning the tool as we go along. So now I'm going to do something, I'm going to start a new paper. I know I'm going fast. I'm just giving you ideas of ways to help engage students in learning the technology, but also doing mathematics. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to open a geometry sticky, and I'm going to make a triangle. And you all have a geometry, I'm terrible. I can't seem to connect them. Sorry about that. There we go. All right. And you all have a shape on your sticky by now. What I want to show you is, let's say we're learning about how to measure angles, and I'm in geometry and I want the students to know how to measure angles with a protractor. I have a protractor tool in geometry. So I want everybody to look down at the bottom of their geometry sticky. So click your geometry sticky, and you should have this little menu of options, things that you can construct. And under the A, you should see a picture that is a protractor. And I want you to click that. And what it does is it puts a protractor on your sticky. And the protractor moves by clicking the point in the middle, and you turn it by clicking the point on the side. So I'm going to show you and demonstrate with this protractor how to measure an angle on my screen. And I want you to try to do and practice on your own screen with your own shape that you drew. Pick an angle somewhere on your shape. Now, notice over here, my protractor has a size, and you guys should have the same thing, a size. And I kind of want mine to be a little bit bigger so you guys can see the numbers. So I can change the size of my protractor by clicking there and changing it to a different number. So I'm going to pick, not too big, I'm going to pick 15. So notice now my protractor is a lot easier to see, and that's what I want. All right, so I'm going to show you how to do the protractor. So I'm going to move the center. Let's say I want to measure the angle E. So I'm going to move the center of the protractor so that it lands on that point E, the vertex of that angle, right? So pick an angle on your shape and do the same thing. And then I want this 0 to lie on one of the sides of that angle. Well, it makes sense to lie on this side because that's where it is. So I'm going to use this point of the protractor that's on the right-hand side to turn my protractor. So notice it's staying on the vertex, and I'm allowed to turn it. And I want to turn it so that that 0 line lies right on the side of that angle. So try the same thing with your own. And for me, then how do I know what the angle is? Well, here's 0. Basically, I follow the protractor up, and here's 30, here's 35. So this is not quite 40. It looks like it is a 38-degree angle. So you read the number where that side of the second side of your angle is crossing that protractor. Okay, so practice on your own. So this might be something that I do with students. I show them how to do something. They're doing it on their own, but how do I know if they're actually working correctly? Another thing I could then do is I'm going to take this triangle that I created. All right, my things are freezing on me here. And I'm going to make it into a different triangle. All right, there we go. So I'm going to change my triangle. This is dynamic software. You can change it. So I'm going to change my triangle. And I'm going to lock all the features of my triangle. Okay, so for those of you not familiar with Classpad, I'm using my mouse to kind of highlight all of it, and so everything is selected. And I'm going over here. So here's where I do things with the things that are selected. And you'll notice an option here for me to lock. So I'm going to lock that shape. So now locking means I can't move it. It's unmovable. So now what I'm going to do to not test, but to see if students can actually do it and I'll come up with the same answer, I'm going to send my picture to them. So this is a neat feature of Classpad. I can immediately make a URL and share it. So I'm going to do that right here. I'm going to go up here, 3 dots. So in Classpad on the paper, every time you see 3 dots, it means there's more. So 3 dots, I'm going to share, and I'm going to hit URL. And this is going to give me a URL. So here's this URL. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to send it to you guys in the chat. So right now you have a link, and I would like you to open that link. So you're my students. I want you to now open that link, and you should see this when you open it. So now you have my paper. So now we're all working on the exact same activity at the same time. So you have my paper, I've locked it, and what I want everyone to do is to measure angle F, right? So I'm going to make a text sticky, and I'm giving you a direction. I want you to measure, I probably should have done this before I sent it to you, angle F, oops, not 5. And I would have students actually put it in their own text box or somewhere, but I want you to measure angle F with your protractor. And so I'm going to give you just a couple minutes to do that. And so then there's a couple ways I could do this. I could actually have them send their papers back to me, so they'd share with the URL, and I'd open each of them. Everyone could share their screen and look at their angle, or they could do it in the chat panel. If you guys want to send it in the chat panel, let's do that if you've measured angle F. And since it is all the same activity, we should all have pretty close to the same angle measure. We might be off precision-wise a little bit, so I'm curious what people got on their own that were actually doing this. With students, I might have them share their screens or show it to me privately or whatever, but this is a quick little, did you learn how to use the protractor message? And obviously, no, they're 91 degrees. Thank you, Amy. We're not having much participation here, so frustrating. Yes, it's about 91. Like, if a student said 92, that's good. So that's the idea. So again, what have we done? We have learned how to use a little bit of the technology, but we were also doing math. Say we're a geometry teacher. So now I'm going to do something else. I'm opening a new page mainly because I don't want to, I want to keep reinforcing you how I'm sharing things. So I have a new page, and I'm going to actually need you to participate in the chat panel. Let's say now I want students to learn how to use some statistical parts of the software, the tool that we're using. I want them to learn how to use that. So I might start off doing the work and then send them to it. So I'm going to start off and show them how to make a table. So students are watching. I'm going to go to the statistics, the data, and open a table. And I'm going to say, okay, you have a table here. You can put a title in, and I'm going to ask you in a minute in the chat panel to send me, and so with students, you want to do something that's pretty easy that can collect data. Send me the number of siblings that you have. How many siblings do you have? So if you all can send me that. So I'm going to, and so as the teacher, I'm collecting the data, but I'm showing the students how I'm doing it. I'm just hitting here, and then I'm hitting exit, and I'm entering the numbers. So I've got 2. Anyone else? I have 4 siblings. Anyone else? Come on, people, participate. 2. Now, if you're with students, hopefully you'll have a lot more, like 30 going on. Wow, everyone, this is not going to be very exciting data. Anyone else? Anyone else? No more. Well, I'm just going to throw some numbers in just to make this a little bit more interesting. All right, so let's say I collected the data. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this. In a class, you might have a lot more data. And a lot of times if you have students collect their own data, they sometimes make mistakes. So I'm going to do the same thing I did last time. I want everyone to have the same table, so I'm going to share. So I hit that 3 dots, I hit share, I'm choosing a URL, and I'm going to copy it, and now I'm going to send it to you in the chat panel. Because what I want to do is I want to make sure all the students have the same data so that our plots and our graphs and all our stuff is the same. So we're all kind of able to compare easily. So hopefully if you open this now, you all have this table. And so again, I'm trying to help students learn how to use the technology while also doing mathematics. So let's say we're doing statistics and I want to show them first how to use the calculator sticky and then also how to use the statistical options. So maybe now I say, okay, we don't have that much data here. Let's get your calculator sticky out. You all should have this table. So open your calculate sticky. So when you click anywhere, that's that first one. And let's figure out the range. So let's say we've already talked about this with students. And so everyone use your calculate sticky. So you'll notice that you have down here numbers. You can type it with your keyboard if you have that, or you can use this soft keyboard here. But I want you to find the range of this data, the range of this data. So hopefully we've already discussed what the range is and they just learn how to use the calculator. So what's the range? Well, our largest number is 5. And I'm going to subtract the smallest number, 0. And I'm going to hit execute. So that's all there is to doing a simple calculation. So our range is 5. So we have 5 different number sets. So you could do a lot of the calculations if we're looking at statistical. So if we want to find the mean or the median or the mode, I could use this calculating tool and actually enter the numbers in by hand. If I wanted to find the mean, I could, 2 plus 2 plus 4 plus 2 plus 2 and divide. I also want to show you that you could use the shortcuts. So if I want to find the mean of this, notice I gave it this number, this label right here. I could use the calculator to do things for me quickly. So the mean or the average, if I type it in, notice it tells me some things I can do. It says mean, put in your list. Well, my list is called SIB, so let's do that. And so the mean, and notice it gave me in standard form, so let's toggle to decimal, is 2.1. What does that mean? So we can have those discussions. We could talk about things like that, but we're using the technology to get the results, and then we could have these discussions in our chat panel, those types of things. So I'm going to ask everyone right now to kind of do what I just did right here and find the mode of this. So type in that word mode and use your label and see if you can come up with the mode. So I'm going to give you just a couple seconds to do that if you've not done this before. And hopefully you can just look at this and see that the mode is 2, but we could verify, and as a teacher I'm going to demonstrate. So mode of SIBS is 2. Okay, so I've kind of shown them how to use the technology. I could ask them to do a lot more, but I've sent them the data. We all have the same data. We're all practicing. So maybe I say, okay, spend the next 10 minutes and come up with the next, the median, the quartile 1, those types of things. I could do that. They could do it on the calculator. But now let's say I want to teach them how to use the statistical options. So again, everyone has the same data. So let's go to the table and everybody click on column A. And what happens is you get another way to look at the statistics, the data. So I could do calculations. So let's everybody click on calculation. And do we have 1 or 2 variables? You could ask them questions. And then we could do 1. I hit the 1 variable. And here's a great way to verify. Let's say I had them do everything by hand. And now I'm showing them that you can also verify and let the calculator or the software do it for you. So here's that mean. It matches the mean that we found. There's the mode right there. It matches the mode we found. So that's another way to do it. So again, teaching them the technology, but still talking about the mathematics. I'm going to show you now how to make some statistical plots. I'm going to make 1 plot, and then I'm going to ask you to make 2 more. So everybody select your column again. So to do anything in statistics, if you want to use the statistics menu, you have to select the columns that have the data in it. So we selected A. It's our only column right now. I could have had more than 1 column. But I want you to go to graph. And this is just 1 variable data. So I'm going to do a dot plot. So I want everyone to have selected column A, and I want you to choose dot plot. And what you should see somewhere on your screen, and it might be below because we've used up some space. So that's the nice thing about stickies is I can move them. So I'm going to move my plot up here. And here is a dot plot of this data. And it sort of shows what we already discovered. We discovered that the mode was 2, that's the one that occurred the most, so that dot plot is showing that at 2 we have more data there. It's showing us the range, all those types of things. What I want you to now do, I made a dot plot by choosing, so I selected my column and I chose the dot plot. I want you to choose and make a histogram and a box and whisker plot of the same data. So you select your column, choose the graph you want to make, and it's all going to show up on the same graph, which is cool. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do that. Make a histogram of that data and also make a box plot of that data. Just give you a couple minutes to do that. And again, if I were actually doing this with students where I had the ability to see what they're doing, so I'm walking around the room looking at their devices, or we're in a Zoom meeting and I can share their screens and see their screens, I would make sure that I'm doing that. But for you guys, just for time's sake, I'm not. Hopefully this is what you saw. So when you do a histogram and a box plot, here is what you have, right? You have the 3 plots on the same graph. So it's all visual representations of the same data. So my question now is, which graph, so the histogram, the dot plot, or the box and whisker, so if I click on that, the box and whisker gives me my 5-number summary there. Which one do you think is the best representation of your data? So everybody who's done this, just type that in the chat panel. Which one of these 3 plots do you think is the best representation of this data about the number of siblings that we have? So we've learned how to make statistical plots, but now we're going to do some math and discussion about it real quick. So Amy says histogram, and I would ask why. Why are you saying that? Histogram, histogram. So if you're all saying histogram, so can someone give me a reason why? Or actually, no, here's what I would then have the students do. Okay, so let's say whatever it is, it looks like everyone's choosing histogram, that's fantastic. But whatever they decided, it doesn't matter, because remember, students have their own interpretation as long as they can explain their reasoning. So what I would then do is show them, I want to show them a cool feature of the technology, but we're also really connecting it to the math. So I would say, okay, whatever you chose, so if you chose histogram or box plot or whatever, I want you to pull that graph out, and we're going to just look at it separately. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's say you chose the histogram. And so notice that each plot's in a different color, and down at the bottom, you see 3 colored tabs that match the plot. So if you chose histogram, like in mine, you would choose the red. If you chose the box plot that's in mine, I would choose the green. So I'm going to choose the histogram. That seemed to be our most favorite response. And I'm going to show you how to pull that graph out. So I'm going to click my mouse. I'm going to hold my mouse down on that red tab, and I'm going to pull it out and pull it down, pull it to the right, however. And now the graph that you decided was the best for that data is now separate. And notice what happens when you pull it out. It brings the table with it. So you still have the data in table form, so multiple representations. It tells you what you have. And the histogram, you can change, you know, do you want your steps to not be this? You can change it. So I want you to work with your histogram and make it be more accurate. But then I also want in a text box, so this is what I'd be doing with students, in a text box, which we are now very familiar with, explain why you think that's the best representation. So what have we done? We've learned how to make tables and collect data, how to make, do the statistics with a calculator and with the statistical things. We've learned how to make different statistical plots. We've learned how to separate out the graphs. And now I'm asking you to explain mathematically, why did you choose whatever it is that you chose? So we've done a lot of things all in once, but we've learned to use the technology, but also we've been focused on the math the whole time. So I'm looking at my time here. So I have a couple more things I want to share. So this is one thing that you could do. You could also have, let's say you want them to just get right into the math and not spend the time, like I've been doing a lot of what we call demonstrating and then asking you to do and then share. But I could start just by giving you an activity that's ready to go. So I'm going to share a link. If I can get it, there it is. And this is a slightly different way to help students learn how to use technology. It's to use a ready-to-use activity, and there are hundreds of them in Classpad.net where people have shared them. So I've sent you a link, and I'm going to open up the same link. And this is what we call a ready-to-use activity. It's an activity that's already created, and the students are going to do mathematics, but they're also learning how to do some of the tools as well. So we're not going to actually do this whole activity. I just want to show you what's happening here. What's the technology that the students are learning? What's the functionality of this software that they're doing while they're doing the math? So this is a graph. So notice I've used a text box. Students are used to that, and it's got directions in it. And it says each slider shows, it's got a parent function in black, and each slider shows the parent equation with a coefficient added. And you have to unhide each equation one at a time and explore what the coefficients are. So I might say, okay, so here's this activity. It's already got equations put in. We've used the graphing. It's got sliders. And these three right here are what we call hidden. So I'm going to show you how to unhide first, and then I'm going to let you go explore. So if I want to unhide this first one where I've got a coefficient A with my x squared. So up here, my parent function, that A has a value of 1. Down here, A could have whatever the slider's value is. So I'm going to unhide it by clicking on the color. If you click on the color, I can change the color, or notice that it says it's hidden, so I'm going to show the graph. So everybody do that. And so now I have my parent function in black and my coefficient A, x squared, in purple, and now I'm going to use my slider. So you can use your slider manually by clicking the points, by dragging the point. So you'll see that, oh, A moved, it moved the parabola up, right, and down. I could animate it and just kind of watch it and see what's happening. So I've shown you how to unhide, and I've shown you how to use the slider. So I'm going to give you some time to explore this activity, and I want you in this place down here to write your observations. What do you notice? What is A doing to this parent function? What is the coefficient B and the variable X doing to this coefficient? So this is an activity where it's all done. Students are just interacting. It's an interactive exploration type activity, but they're using and learning to use the tools by interacting with them. So that's another way that you can help students get comfortable with the technology. So they're learning to use sliders. They're learning to hide and unhide equations. They're also actually seeing that equation, how it's written. So they're learning how to write equations. And at the end, we are going to actually write an equation together. So this is another way to help students learn the technology, but they're always doing math while they're doing it, is to use these ready-to-use types of activities. And those can be found in our public papers, which if we have time, I'll show you where that is. I'm not going to have you guys actually do this because I'm trying to honor our time here, and I'm almost running out. This is a very simple type of activity. It's an exploration, and I did do a little bit of show and tell, like show you how to unhide, and then I let you go off and explore. So students would do this in, on their own computers. If you're in the face-to-face environment, if you're in an online environment, maybe this is, their homework for the evening is, I've shown you what you do. So tonight I want you to explore this, and tomorrow we're all going to come back and talk about your observations. Or they could, if they're doing it on their own, they could save it and send me their observations. Maybe that's what I'm going to check. So while I'm in there, let's say you guys just duplicated something, or I gave you a link. If I'm the student and this is the teacher sent me this activity, I'm working on it, but it's not, notice, if you remember to the beginning, it's not in my account because I don't have that cloud. So if this were my homework assignment, I would need to make sure I save it to my account. I'd want to have an account. And how do I do that? I'm logged into my account. I already know that. This activity was sent to me by my teacher, URL. I need to come over here. So if you guys are in your own account right now and you want to act like you're the student, to save your paper basically is what you're doing. is you'd go to this little icon here, and it's only there if you're in an account, but you'd hit duplicate, and what it does, you'll see the difference. So I'm the student. My teacher just sent me this paper. I have to do it for homework. So I duplicated. It's now in my account. And so notice the difference. I've got my cloud save, and here's all my papers. So now I can work on this. I can write my observations, and I can send it back to the teacher by sharing it, or just have it ready for her to look at if we're going to be on the Zoom meeting or in class the next day, however we're going to work with it. So that's another way to do that. The last thing I want to show you is this was kind of just an exploration, like a quick little snippet, but there are entire whole math lessons that allow you and the students to start working with with software like this, with technology, and not really have to know anything about the technology, because during the activity, it gives you hints and directions and help. So I wanted to just give you an example of what I'm talking about there. This is a full-on lesson, not just a kind of discovery. There we go. So I'm going to send you another link if you want to just look at it. And I'm going to put it in here as well. So this is an activity, and it's from Cassio's Fostering Advanced Algebraic Thinking, but it's an activity, it's a full lesson. So there are lots of these already in Classpad, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And this is a great way to start with students if you're trying to get them to use technology, but you don't have time to create things, you don't have time to teach them. It's to, uh-oh, I don't know what just happened to that video there. It's time, it helps them do mathematics and do the technology and learn the technology as they're doing the mathematics. So this one has, a problem. There's a video clip that actually shows them how to enter matrices, because that's what they're doing. They're given a table, and here's the calculation tool, and it's having them set up matrices. And so there's this little how-to right here. That's a video. I don't know where it keeps disappearing. And then there's other directions, like if we want them to make a graph, it says select column A, select column B. So these are the kind of activities that are ready to use, that let you get right into the mathematics while still using technology, and have little hints and little suggestions and little ideas of how to use it, how to use the tools that the students have to do, like how to make a table. It might give them a hint, or it might have the table ready to go and they just have to enter the numbers. So that's another way to help get students using technology without taking the time to necessarily teach it, because they're going to be learning and using the technology while they do the math. So these are just ideas I wanted to share. Technology makes math so much more interesting and explorative. But are there any questions? I'm happy to show you some things if you'd like to see, especially those of you who've not used Classpad before. I can show you where these activities, we have lots and lots of activities that are ready to share, so I can show you that. Any questions?
Hey, Karen, can you show us where those free activities can be found?
Yeah. All right, so there's a couple places you can go. I'm going to go back to the home page, because that's got a really nice organization. So if you're on the home page, the landing page, you'll see right here, there's this little link that says activities. If you click that, this is a quick way to find everything without having to actually be in an account. Like I'm just, you're just in. So you'll notice it's activities, and they are kind of organized by the sticky. So the calculate sticky, the graphing sticky, the geometry sticky, the data, the main 4 stickies that you tend to use. And then it's by content. So let's say I'm a geometry teacher, and here's a bunch of activities, and each activity has a title. It kind of gives you a hint of what's in it. So if you're looking for a Pythagorean theorem, this might be a nice one to go to. And there's middle school, and so let's just look at it. Let's look at a calculus activity. That's always fun. So here's one, title, has to do with regressions and midpoints. So if you like an activity, if it sounds interesting and you're in this page, all you have to do is click it, and it does exactly what we just did a minute ago. It opens up the paper, and technically you're just a guest right now. You don't have to have an account, so you're just a guest, and so you can kind of explore the paper. So this is an activity, basically curve fitting. So notice it's got the table ready for them to go. They're going to be doing regressions, and it's telling them, it's giving them hints of what they need to do, how to do things. So this is a full-on activity with places for students to write their answers and directions and questions. If you like an activity, it's just like I did before. If you have an account, once you find an activity you like, you hit this duplicate button and it puts it into your papers. So that's one way to find activities, is to go to the actual activity page on the Classpad.net. Another way is if you're in an account, so you need to be signed into your account. So I'm in my account. If you go over here to the paper stack, which is basically your paper management, it's where all the activities you've found or made or are using. So you'll see I have a lot of folders, and all these activities we just did are right here. But you can search, there's a couple ways. You can hit public papers. So over here, there's places to go. And so it's going to list the most recent public papers that other people have shared, and there's Ish. Or you can do a search and do it by keywords. I tend to search by the content that I'm looking for. So let's say I'm looking for something with linear. So you hit search, and it's going to bring back anything in your papers first. So do you have anything in your own personal papers that's on linear? If you want to find public papers, you would just click that tab. And so now you'll see there's lots and lots of activities on linear, just on that one word. So that's another way to find papers. And again, you would do the same thing. If something looks interesting, open it up, and then when it's open, duplicate it if you like it, and then it becomes yours. And once it's yours, once it's in your account, it's yours. And so you can modify it, you can change it, you can add things to it, get rid of things, because it's now your paper. Any other questions?
No, I don't see any.
Okay, so let me open this up. So I am done. And Amy, did you want to talk about this? Thank you very much for participating. Hopefully I shared some things that you could use with your students, helping them learn technology.
Thank you, Karen. It was good to remind ourselves that we do need to give the students time to kind of explore on their own and just play around. You know, we try to regiment everything all the time, and that doesn't always work with all students. So it's a good reminder. Thank you for that. So this page is a list of some of our upcoming webinars that we are doing. As you can see, it's a combination between hardware and also with our Classpad.net and working with dynamic activities and technology and online technology. So if you're interested in joining us, feel free to check out Classpad.net webinars page for those webinars, and then Casio Education webinars for those, and register there. Also, we are doing a series on equity in education with the Benjamin Banneker Association and with TOTOS. So we've already had 2 webinars with them already.
Right.
And then, so our next webinar will be next Wednesday evening, August 26th. And then there will be another one September 8th. And then we're essentially doing kind of one each week. So just be on the lookout for those. There are a few more that are already scheduled. So check
through October. Yeah, we have.
Yeah,
we're not up there yet, but they're through October. Yeah.
Yes. So otherwise, that is it. If there aren't any more questions, I mean, if there are, feel free to type them in the chat panel. We'll stay on for a little bit longer to answer those questions. Also, we can offer a certificate of attendance if you joined us this evening live. So please email classpad.net@gmail.com and we'll get you that certificate. Otherwise, check out some of our social media platforms. And then this webinar is being recorded and will be available tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, sometime tomorrow, on our YouTube channel. Yeah.
Usually in the morning.
So. And remember, if you sign up for an account right now, you have free access with all the advanced statistics functionality as well as the computer algebra system functionality. So CAS functionality through the end of the year right now.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.